Welcome back, Rage Nation.
Definitely not PR friends.
Myself, Pete.
He needs to stop, fucking getting cute with his pick.
John the Mountain Man Stokes.
You're not putting them on my models, motherfucker.
Chris the Non-Tech Asian.
Put the tape measure up and get some widgets.
You really frustrated me.
You walked away and you came back and your scalpel had been thrown across the room.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. I will share with you my one rage quit story.
That I'm a robot and I don't have a soul or personality.
This is going to be a really great opportunity for everybody to see how you effed up.
Welcome back, Rage Nation. We got another Malifaux episode for you guys today. I've been getting a lot of messages on creating more Malifaux content, so here we go. So, got Pete back here, and this time we're going to be talking about some of those dirty, dirty terrorists, the Arcanists. And I've been playing against them a lot, but I definitely need help kind of going through the cards. And we're not going to go through all of them like the other previous episodes. We're going to kind of do a brief overview, what each keyword's about, and then just generally how does the faction feel for those people that are just getting into the faction or brand new players. So this time I invited on Jeremy Peace. He's from the North Carolina meta, which is definitely a strong Malifaux meta. So yeah, Jeremy, how you doing today, man?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I mean, this is actually kind of cool because you're just a little bit more seasoned than me. I mean, you said you basically started maybe like a year ago playing Malifaux?
Yeah, I ordered my first models end of May last year and just been trying to get in as many games as I can and learning as much as I can about Malifaux.
Yeah, and you were just telling me that your third game was against Cody Hyatt when you were learning to play, so that must have been an eye-opener.
Yeah, I learned very quickly what the curve is in order to be good. Because he's probably one of the best players that we have around. Definitely the best player I've played, and it was. I quickly learned that I needed to do a lot of work if I actually wanted to be competitive.
Yeah. Now, do you come from playing a lot of competitive tabletop games, card games? What were you into before you found Malifaux?
Malifaux is the first game like this that I've ever played. Never, played any tabletop games. Didn't even really know about this stuff. My best friend was playing Malifaux, and I was just like, what are you doing every Tuesday? Like, where do you go every Tuesday after work? Because he would always have to leave. When we worked together as well, he was leaving work. He was like, no, I'm just gonna go play this game. And I played a lot of cards. I played a lot of poker.
Oh,
so the card aspect was attractive to me. And after we pushed models around one day, I was like, I'll give it a shot. Ordered some models, and here we are.
Okay, that's interesting. That this is kind of your first tabletop crack. So coming from poker, is there stuff that you bring from playing a lot of poker to Malifaux? Just kind of curious.
Definitely. As far as I can do card math without necessarily thinking about it that much. So I'm kind of always tracking in my head how many severes do they have left, so I kind of have an idea about where I'm sitting in terms of their deck being hot, my deck being hot, things like that. I can usually pick up pretty quickly if the person doesn't have a really good hand or if they have a really good hand. So yeah. I'll use that information in as well. And it's just some of the basic strategies of games just applies across whether it's, Malifaux or poker or anything else. Just when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because that's something I'm starting to pick up on. I come from a lot of dice tabletop games, so this is kind of a newer thing to me. I've casually played poker, but that's something I'm definitely starting to pick up on. Like if I see somebody cheat in or if they can't cheat in, they look at it and they're like, oh, I just can't. They don't know they're giving away information. I'm like, okay, the highest card you have is like a 6.
Yeah, and that's incredibly valuable information. And I try to be upfront about that with any player that I play that I have a history in poker because sometimes I almost feel like they're giving me so much of that information sometimes and I don't and I can avoid giving up that information in most cases. I mean, sometimes I'm not trying that hard. I mean, a casual game, I don't care if if I have
Yeah,
a
right.
good hand or a bad hand, but like if when I'm focused on it and playing competitively, then I know that I'm not giving up that information. And since it's an open information game, I try to make sure that we're both on the same page as to you know what I could be trying to figure out or figuring out as the game progresses.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice kind of thing for people to think about getting into the game. I know this is kind of a casual overview of the faction, but that is good just information for people to realize that you can gather a lot of information from your opponent, and you'll notice even in tournaments, people give away a ton of information about their hand. It's kind of ridiculous sometimes when I'm like, this is a tournament, right? You want to be telling me that you have like no severes in your hand?
Yeah, and that is just the way that a lot of people a lot of people do that even in poker. Like I mean I was basically making a living off of people just giving away that information even though they were playing for real money. So even with this, people just they want to complain about that. There's just something like
Human nature.
you just want to tell them, like, you look down and the highest card you have in your hand is a 5, and you're just so bothered by it, you just say something. Like, you just
Yeah.
can't help yourself. Or they just can't help their excitement when they look down and they have 3 severes, their red joker and their black joker, so they know that everything's gonna happen, nothing bad's gonna happen.
Yeah. And that's kind of a tip for, I would say, for players, for me, is I just always look at my hand. I'm like, man, this is straight up fire. And that way, sometimes my opponents think it's good. And then sometimes I'm like, nope, I meant dumpster fire.
Yeah, right. Just as long as you keep it consistent,
Yep.
like Jesse, one of the guys from our meta, whenever he looks at his hand, he said, "That's a hand," because it is. And every time it's a hand. It might be a
Yep,
good one, it might be a bad one, but it's a hand.
All right, man. Well, we're not, like I said, we're not going to talk too much about the fluff, but I just did want to give kind of a brief overview for the people that are interested in, because the Arcanists do have an interesting story arc. Basically, the Arcanists are kind of almost like the terrorists of Malifaux. They're kind of fighting against the guild. They're kind of plotting underground. They're trying to, do whatever they can to throw the wrench in the guild's plan because they don't like the control that the guild has. And so you have the main person in the story is Ramos, and he's kind of like the person that runs the story initially, but he actually ends up getting captured and thrown into prison. And I believe, don't get mad if I get this wrong, people, but I believe Ramos is still in prison, and that's why he's in the dead man's hand and not available for play right now. That's my general knowledge of where Ramos is in the game. But yeah, if you listen to the backstory of the Arcanist, that's what mostly it is. You have kind of like Madame Colette just kind of like running her showgirls, but kind of helping out Ramos and the people just kind of scheme around the guild. And it's an interesting backstory. So if you're into fluff, I would definitely give them a read because there's a lot going on with that guild.
Yeah, and I think Tony's the reason why Ramos got in prison.
Yeah, there's like this inner conflict between the faction.
Right. Yeah. And the fluff aspect has been one of the things that I've been, slowly getting a grasp on just from both playing the game and like just picking it up. Like, because there's a lot. I felt like, there was books and books of information to catch up on when I stepped into the game. But I like how when I learn about the models and then when I hear about the fluff aspect, it all kind of fits together and makes sense so that it's easier to put together.
Yeah, and I would say, like, if you are kind of newer getting into just Malifaux in general, the best place to start with the background of your faction is those 3rd edition kind of fluff books. I just picked up the one for Bayou, and they're good because they give you the background of each individual model, just a quick, 2 paragraphs about each model, like what they do. And then you also get probably about 4 or 5 big stories in there. And that kind of gives you an idea of what those characters are about. Like the one I'm reading for Bayou talks about, this inner conflict between the Tuckets and the Joneses. And you get this kind of cool, rivalry / Hatfield and McCoy feel to it. So it just gives you kind of that flavor of the game. So don't start with the whole story of Malifaux. I would say go ahead and start with your faction and get that 3rd edition book and just kind of get your feel of, okay, this is what my faction's all about. That's a good place to start.
I think you sold me on it. I think I need to pick up the faction book.
Yeah, I picked up the third edition for Bayou, and I haven't read all the other Bayou fluff, but it's just kind of cool because I'm reading this one story where they're doing like this train heist between the Tuckets and the Joneses, but it goes back and forth between Ma and Somer, and they talk about how they're going to backstab each other. So it's a pretty funny story. I mean, Bayou's a lot of comedy, so they're getting drunk and stuff on the mission. I think Somer falls asleep in the ditch while they're waiting on the train. It's pretty funny.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I know the Arcanists have some cool stories that I'm going to read once my buddy's done with his book. So, but we'll get into the cards and the crews just because I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to say, and I hope that we can kind of learn something so I can learn how to beat these consistently because they're really good. So, first thing I want to start off with, Jeremy, is just the versatile models for the Arcanists. So, there's a good kind of selection when it comes to their versatile models. So what are some of the ones that you're like, I bring these models a lot because they're really good in the faction?
Yeah, I would say we have one of the better selection of versatile models. A lot of our versatile models are constructs, which makes sense because both the Ramos aspect, but one of our upgrades is based on the model being a construct. So,
Mhm.
some of our upgrades can't go on all of our models.
Yep.
So things like the effigy is great. The emissary is great. A mechanical rider, I take that in a lot of lists because it just adds so much flexibility.
Yeah.
Both with the ride with me, the having the ability to reactivate a model. So you can just, even after a model's already activated that turn, you can choose for any model on the table outside of a master to reactivate, including the rider itself. Um,
Yep.
Taking that with like a Soulstone Miner, they changed the Soulstone Miner so that you can't, that is no longer used for strats and schemes until the beginning of its next activation. Well, if you can pop it up and then reactivate it later with the rider, then you can kind of get around that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, I mean, the swarm is still great, even though it doesn't have the baked in onslaught anymore. And we can use one of our upgrades to let it use stone. So then if it gets a kill, it gets the stone back. So that can always work out. And I like the Mecharachnid too, the bigger spider model, because it's armor 2, cost 6. So it isn't like hugely taxing on your crew, and it has precise, so it can get around in armor hard to kill, shielding hard to wound, all those things. It can get around it, and you can hit onslaught with that too. And it has ways to get positives on its duels, so giving you
Yeah.
a better chance of hitting that trigger, or giving it the upgrade so you can use stones to hit it if you need to.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of that stuff used to great effect, and they are just it's kind of they're all just really solid models. Like the armor, because like you said, most of them are constructs, so the armor on them just makes them a little more survivable than your every other faction's versatile models. But the one model I did want to ask about is what do you like about the Arcane Emissary? Because I haven't seen that on the table yet, so I'm kind of curious how you like using that on the table.
Yeah. Well, one thing is it has a 2-inch melee. So 2-inch melees, you can put your opponent in a lot of bad positions with that. And with it having a bigger base, you can take up a lot of space with that
Yeah.
area of things possibly not being able to charge, or and then it has the ability to when it charges, it gets the extra 2 inches. It has rush.
Yeah, Rush.
Right. And frenzy charge, so it can charge more than once. So if you are charging a model that has a 1-inch melee, and you give it something like Diesel Engine, which gives you a positive to your damage flip if you charge, you can just charge twice because they're not engaging you. So you can just move, charge again, or use the shove aside and hit 2 models, or the and it has that negation aura, so that if they cheat fate around it, they have to. If they cheat fate around it, they have to discard a card.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it just has a lot of options. It has armor 1, it has regen. So if you have something else that could possibly, even if you use the effigy and give it the upgrade, It has regen 1, so it's going to start getting some of that health back. And if maybe one heal from something else, if you have a way to incidentally heal it, then it's back up to, close to 10 wounds and doing a lot of
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so definitely some really solid models. And I'll ask you this because I feel like, especially before the errata, almost there was no reason not to bring a Soulstone Miner. Do you feel like that's still the case, or are you now like, okay, now it's a select choice if I bring the Soulstone Miner?
Even before, I didn't necessarily bring it all the time. I think one of the things that was getting a lot of players to bring it a lot was based on the schemes.
Yeah.
And now the schemes, there isn't as many of them where it's just a layup to
like
get
a B there.
Right, yeah, exactly. Just show up and it's done. With the reductions and things now, it's more strategic. I mean, still getting a soulstone every turn is still good. Like, it allows you to bring a more elite list, or spend a lot more stones on your list, and then be able to get those stones slowly throughout the game. But now it's just not unkillable. Like before, it was just when it was armor 2, it was just too hard to get it killed, especially because almost every Arcanist was giving it the magical training, so it had a shield. So if you're doing 3 damage on the first swing, that's 0. And then you get a second swing, you might do a couple damage, and then boom, it's burying itself again at the beginning of the next turn. So then it's gone, possibly for the rest of the game if they needed to hide it. So I just think it's a lot more balanced with it having, like, you can't just sit it somewhere and just know that nothing's going to happen to it.
Yeah, and I will say for the Soulstone Miner, I'd say probably the actually thing that it's strongest is those crews that like to sit back. The Soulstone Miner is great for popping up in the backfield and then like charging your master or doing some other nonsense that it shouldn't be doing. It's just like it's so good at killing those weak tech pieces.
Right. And now if you were to try to do that for something like Vendetta, you would have to risk it possibly getting killed before you could bury it again. Yep. Which, even though I liked it when it was stronger, but I could understand why it's more reasonable this way. Okay, I get why they needed to tone it down a bit, because there was just a lot of ways that you could just get away with doing so much. With
I know there's people like Craig who are very happy that it got nerfed.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started into our first keyword. So I'm actually going to start with the performer keyword. And I feel like that this keyword is really good, but I feel like it takes a lot of practice to get good with. And that's Miss Colette Dubois' crew. So what do you think about Colette and her performers?
I think she's one of the best masters in the faction, if not the. I mean, summoners always are always really good, so it's probably up between those two. The only thing with Colette is it was kind of like learning how to play the opposite way that I initially was trying to, because it isn't as necessarily focused on just killing the other models. You just more have to think about the game of how can I score the most points and how can I get that done with this crew. And she does a great job of that.
Yeah, because she is all about positioning and scheming with her. I mean, if you look at, it's a beautiful card because, and dude, her new box, those models are amazing too. But she has Don't Mind Me, which is amazing because she can just slip away and I don't care. Yeah, she can do a lot of different things. She negative flips to attack her, gives out a ton of distracted, and can also stun models if they start within 6 inches of her if they have distracted. So she just does a lot of cool things that really mess up your game plan as an opposing crew.
And if you hit her, she has a defensive trigger to bury herself, so making her that much harder to get a handle of. It's kind of like a game of whack-a-mole. If you hit her here, she disappears and then pops up next to a friendly model, passing out distracted and possibly stunning them when they activate.
Now, Jeremy, do you have a funny story about Presto Changeo? Because I feel like Presto Changeo can make some people want to lose their minds when it happens to them.
Actually, I do. One of the before I really got a grasp on how good Colette was, she was one of the last masters I moved to
Hmm.
because I was just like, when I looked at the card, I just couldn't see the value of any of these things. I was just like, how is this even good?
How is this good?
Right. How is this good? She doesn't she doesn't do any damage on her melee attack. She has one attack that can do damage, but it's a bonus action, so she can only do it once a turn. I'm like, there's no way that this can be as great as people are making it. And I was actually playing Jesse, and he was playing Tony, and then he ran Colette as the second master. And I was like, okay, I hear that she's a great scheme runner. And then I believe I was playing Raspy, and then he presto changed Raspy from where all of my crew was to in the back of his crew where Tony was waiting for to punch her face in. And I'm like,
Nice.
oh,
Okay.
that is
Like, okay.
really, yeah. I'm like, okay, now I don't have a master. This game is pretty much over, but I've definitely learned something valuable. Like that is really good. And when you can move something that far from, from
Yeah, it's
8 inches away,
8 inches.
yeah, exactly. And then you can place it within a friendly model that's within range. So that can be 8 inches on one side and then 8 inches on the other. So 17 inches or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I
with
had
her having to move six, it's just anything can be gone.
yeah, I was playing Ulix, and the guy that's playing Arcanist in our group, he presto changeoed Major over to his side, and I was like, oh, but that's not where I want Major to be, and I was like, this is kind of bad, and I didn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly. And then next thing you know, your model's stunned and distracted. So even if you were trying to swing out, you really can't do anything about it. It
Yeah,
can
so
just be so oppressive.
she's really a master who I don't even know if somebody knows what they're doing with Colette, I don't know if you can actually go into her, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, you have to stun her, so
Yeah.
that she can't get that defensive trigger off. And if you can get her stunned so she can't bury, and you have a way to get around the serene countenance, like some way to bake in a positive, either
Yeah.
on then you can possibly those are the times where you know I've lost games with her because they had a way to kind of get around that and get her down. But
Yeah.
if you just let her uh, run havoc on the board, just going back and forth, it's just really hard to stop her from scoring as many points as she wants.
So what are some of the models in her crew that you like a lot? Let's just get one or two that you're like, okay, when I play her, I really like these models.
Carlos is one of the best scheme runners and models in her crew. I think she's one of the best scheme runners in the faction, honestly, because he has so much movement. He has move 6. He has a bonus action to move him another 5, so he can get to where he needs to be. He has butterfly jump, don't mind me. So lots of ways to make sure that he can get his scheming done.
And I hear a lot about the I don't even know how you pronounce this. Is it Corfi duet? Those models, the Corfi and the Corfi duet. What's the deal with those? Because I hear a lot of people talk about those a lot.
Absolutely. There's some things that the core feed duet excels in, like public enemies, because of its demisability. You can't get the full amount of points for it because it replaces with mannequins, which are below 6 stones. So you can
Yeah,
only get 1 point for them, even though the duet itself is 12 points. So you should be able to get 3. Defense 7, armor 2, and, it has crit strike, so, and you can get a lot of the with the replacement tricks of having one of them activate and then the other activate, and then on the next turn merging them together, and then when you split, one of them hasn't activated. So if you have the duet and then split them apart, you calculate pass tokens when the duet was one model. So then when you split it apart and the other one is unactivated and you get to use one, you can kind of get that advantage back from the activation order,
yeah,
because you always want to be the last one activating. The more often you have where you have a spot where you have like multiple activations than the other person has done, it seems like it works out better.
Yeah, and that's one of the, and for some reason I don't get this. It people need to use their pass tokens more because I play Bayou, so I have a lot more models than most of my opponents, and for some reason people want to activate their stuff, and at the end of the turn they got like 6 pass tokens, and or usually not that many, usually like 2 or 3, but and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna activate like 3 models now, and something good's gonna happen.
Exactly. I'm going to activate all of my most important things, or I'm going to be able to get over into the spot where I can score all of my points. And like with Colette, she has 3 totems. So,
yeah,
with that and the duet, it's very hard to take activation control from Colette and her crew,
Yeah, and the doves are actually interesting in this new season because in Gaining Grounds with what's that, corrupted ley lines, you can actually give the lodestone to them and they can carry it around. They just can't interact to get it off them.
Can they?
I believe they can.
Now, I always thought that when it says that they're ignored for strats and schemes, that it's like when you look at the board and you're considering something that involves strats and schemes, it's like they don't exist, so that they wouldn't be able to hold it.
Maybe, but I don't know if that gets around it because let's say I place or bury or something like that, or I don't place, but maybe like you bury yourself and you had the stone on you, it goes to the closest friendly model. I don't know if that would be able to jump to them or not. So that's something I know I've heard some people questioning, so I'm not sure how that works with that.
I definitely have heard that one, and I've played it where I don't give it to them just because I don't want to have the argument, or I would just, it just makes the game go faster, it seems. But I'm not sure. I would love for that to be the case because then that makes Colette even better.
Most times it's one of those things where it doesn't feel right. So I'm like, okay, I wouldn't play it that way. But if you're really hell bent on it, I mean, we can play with it and I can still have fun. It's like they're just doves. I'll just whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have 2 wounds. You'll pop it, and then the nearest model will have to get it, and then Colette will get to draw a card.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Anything else in the crew that you're just like, oh yeah, this is a cool model too, or is those the ones that you're really really like?
Well, I really like Angelica because of the way that she has Herald. She can move any performer model with her bonus action up to 5 inches without having to flip for it. Anything that you can do like that where you don't have to flip seems like those are the really good abilities. So, of course, the whole crew has like Don't Mind Me, so that's good. And she has the ability to drop a shockwave that allows her to put down a scheme marker on any tome 6 or higher. So you can give her the ability to use stones if you like, or you can just bank on the fact that you'll have that, tome in hand at some point.
In a game that is all about efficiency, this is like the crew that makes like your game plan the least efficient as possible. It's just crazy. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting crew. Definitely need to get your reps if you're going to be playing that crew for sure.
Yeah, that ability to just be able to drop down scheme markers from 10 inches away is fantastic. But a lot of the models like have cool tricks in Colette like that, like Cassandra being able to copy an ability, even if it's a bonus action with her upstage to any tactical action. So I've used that before in a tight spot to copy Ride With Me to move a model when it costs you a bonus action and an action, but if it's the difference between scoring a point or not scoring a point, it's worth sacrificing 2 actions in order to get those kind of things done. So
for sure.
Flexibility.
Yeah, definitely a flexible crew. I was saying that this is a crew that is great at, in a game where your economy of your actions is the best way to win the game. She is great at making your actions not as valuable, and that's really strong if you can get good with it.
Absolutely.
So the next keyword that we're going to focus on is the wildfire keyword. So that is Karis and her just going to light the world on fire and pass out a crap ton of injured.
Yeah, lots of burning, lots of injured.
I've had a lot of experience because the guy I play in our meta, he has played a lot of Karis because she's just good. So what are some things that you like about her on the tabletop?
That her her power markers aren't destructible.
Yep.
So it very few models have ways, or very few. I'll even say very few factions have ways to deal with markers that aren't destructible. Like, unless you have something like Molly or something like that that can just remove any marker, or maybe Gluttony.
Yeah, I
You're
think
just
Matcha's one in Bayou that can
yeah,
deal with it.
yeah. The emissary, I think in Bayou can like roll over them to pick them up, but most factions really don't have a way to deal with those kind of markers, and injured is one of the best what's conditions in the game.
Conditions, yeah.
Absolutely. Because anytime that you're able to get their number down low enough, even if it's just 1 or 2 points, it changes all the math on how successful your actions are going to be based on where you're sitting in the deck and what you have in your hand. Like, you can just all of a sudden it can go from, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this much damage to this you know to this model, to, okay, now I can get this trigger off where I get to drop a pyre marker so that that model next to it is taking blast damage, and then when it moves it's going to be injured, and I can go after it as well. So it can just really get a lot of work done.
Yeah, and she has flight, so she's moving around, kind of getting around the battlefield. She has running gun, so she gets her 8-inch gun when it's relevant. But she's definitely mostly using her bonus action to put out the hazardous, burning one, injured one pyre marker. And then I've found that a lot of times she's just fanning the flames to move them where they're most beneficial.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to go at it. Or one of the things that I'll do is I'll put, if I can get 2 pyre markers down, because she can get 2 down with the trigger. You could put one in a spot where it's going, where their models are going to need to go, and then put one in a spot where you can charge into, so that you can raise your burning, and and be in position to shoot them with running gun, because you can use your burning to get a positive. So now you're just taking pot shots at their models to do damage, and just keep spending that for positive flips, or using a
Yeah,
totem to push them around, to push that fire to get them burning and injured early.
and would you say that just her crew in general, is it a lot of kind of like ping damage? Like, are you just kind of slowly doing damage and then maybe getting one shot in there to finish them off, or the burning's going to slowly tick them too? Like, how do you usually see her playing on the table?
So, like, one of the things that I like about her keyword is that it kind of feels like with each model, you know exactly what that model is supposed to be doing, just based on its abilities. Whether it's, like Borgman having a great sword, so you know that he's supposed to be, taking those big swings to get within that 3, 4, 5 damage range.
Yep.
Same with the Golem; it has a 3, 4, 5 damage, and it can use its burning like armor. So it's honestly, more often than not, that's just like a huge tar pit in the middle of
Yep.
the board, because they're struggling to, unless they have a way to end your conditions, um, they're basically going against armor 2 that they can't use armor piercing against. And so that everything just kind of has its own place, and they can get a lot of damage done.
Yeah, I was going to say they even have some really good scheme runners. They have the fire starter too, and the fire starter can just run around and kind of do its own thing while the other crew's lighting your face on fire.
Yeah, you look at that card, you see, okay, it's move 7 and it has reckless. So yeah, 21 inches of movement, and it can be wherever it needs to be, and use stones if someone goes after it. It's just, yeah, it just can get tons done. And that light under your feet ability, you can use that on their like as against their models or your own. So, and with the tome trigger, you can basically push another model from 8 inches away wherever you want with any tome, because there isn't a TN on it, and then just drop a scheme marker
Yeah.
in base contact with them. So everything just kind of has its place.
Yeah, he can definitely run a lot of these schemes in gaining grounds 1 by himself, just because like he can just drop a scheme marker, go 7, drop another scheme marker, and that's a couple of the schemes where it's like, okay, that checks the block, and he's doing other things now.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Like the symbols of authority, he's great for that, because he can just get over to where he needs to be and pick up a marker pretty easily. I mean, with 21 inches of movement in turn one, you probably only use 2 of it, and then the second turn you might use all 21 inches, or at least use both moves and then pick up, one of the symbols of authority, so he can get to wherever he needs to be.
Yeah, and I definitely see all these wildfire keywords. You could definitely build your crew just around the wildfire, and you'd have a lot of success with it. Are there any out of keyword models you like bringing with wildfire to help them maybe do something they don't excel in that well?
I would say it's rare that I would bring something out of keyword.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go versatile. I mean, I've tried some things like pulling in a silent one because it's the best healer in the faction. Is way better than the firebranded, in my opinion, in terms of just having a heal. And then it makes it, you can run a scheme like Research Mission pretty easily if you have, the silent one putting down the ice pillar and the Karis and her crew putting down pyre markers. You're basically a scheme marker away from scoring. And so, I mean, I've tried that a few times, but yeah, with her keyword, it's pretty strong within itself, and
Yeah.
And everything benefits from the fire, so it's just usually easier to stay there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of power in that crew, but is there anything that you feel like counters it pretty well, or is there anything where you're like, you got to watch out for this because this can really make it rough on Karis?
Yeah, things that can easily remove conditions, you got to be careful. So, like, anytime that you're facing someone like Von Stuck, the monk master in Ten Thunders, Shenlong,
Yeah, Shenlong.
yeah, that has the ability just to remove your conditions pretty easily, or anything that can end conditions like that. You can't take the fire golem because effectively it's not going to have his armor, so you're going to need to replace it out with something else like the emissary. Or so as long as you're kind of aware of those things, you can usually be in a pretty good spot. Those are the things that she's going to hate, things that end the fire condition, or of course remove those markers easily. Those things can make her have a much more difficult time at getting what she needs to get done.
Let's go ahead and hop into our next keyword. And this one I find is kind of interesting because I feel like people either love it or they hate it. And that's Marcus with the Chimera crew. And he's one of the dual masters in the faction. So what do you think about Marcus? I mean, is he one that you kind of like? Is he one where you're kind of not impressed by him? I don't know what your feelings are.
Well, Marcus is actually the first master I bought. Bought his box and Tony's. Those were the first, and Marcus was the first one I got painted and was playing a lot. I do like Marcus. As I've played more Malifaux, he isn't, there's spots where he can be good, but I almost feel like anytime I'm picking Marcus, there's another master that I could pick if I wanted to be more competitive. Some of the things that were cleared up in GG1 really hurt Marcus, like when you can't declare triggers off of a trigger. So it makes his Call of the Wild ability not as good. I really think that it should just be his ability should just allow you to move or charge instead of it being the trigger allowing you to charge, so that he would feel more like a master to me. I don't know, but I do like the aesthetic of a lot of the models, and I like and they do a lot of cool things like passing up the upgrades. Having a cat that will that has stealth and being able to pass out like the charge through and stuff like that. I mean, you can giving it flight. You can make some really scary models that can get a lot done. And one of the things that I didn't figure out until I went back to Marcus after I was just getting my face smashed in every time I played him, was that when you rip off the upgrades, you get a positive and the suit. I thought it was one or the other. So, and with the changes to the order initiates, making them a little bit cheaper, and then them being able to give themselves an upgrade, so you can kind of get them built up pretty quickly with 2 upgrades, and then actually use the trap I was falling in was leaving the upgrades on the models too long, trying to Voltron them up, have it. But that's not really what you need to be doing. You just need to be getting them on there, using them for the moment, and then ripping them off during your attacks so that you can get those positives and those suits built in so you can hit that onslaught trigger or double puncture or whatever it may be so that you can get damage done.
Yeah, because I feel like that was one of the weaknesses I noticed about Marcus is that people like they'll build up their Voltrons on their big pieces and then they kind of spread out and go do things, which I feel like Marcus's crew, even though you can do that, I feel like most of the time they should actually stay relatively close to Marcus so you can uh, adjust what upgrades you need as the ebb and flow of the game happens. So that's one thing I noticed about Marcus when I played against him.
Yeah, it's like it's like he doesn't want to be a bubble master, but he still does. Like because you can add the upgrades from 12 inches away, but he's actually one of the he has some of the best card draw in the faction because
Yeah.
when you rip off an upgrade within using discard an upgrade within 6, you get to draw a card. So if you're actually adding those upgrades off and then discarding them for those positives and suits and getting the draw card, you're getting a lot of efficiency there that you're not going to get if you let if you have a model that is 8 inches away or on the other side scoring going for breakthrough. I mean, it can be great for that, but you're still going to just be missing a lot of that engine that's going to help him be stronger when he's closer to the middle of the board.
Yeah, which one of the monsters do you like using the most? Like, which one are you like? Okay, when I do play him, this is the one I like because it gets the most work done.
I think people fear the Sabretooth the most, but I like the Slate Ridge Mauler a lot and the Scorpius. Those two, I would say, are the two that are I can get the most work out of because with laugh off and being able to stop an enemy model from moving you or from an effect or anything during their activation
Yeah.
can be really useful, especially with something like ley lines. If you give it the lodestone and basically say I'm standing here, they're going to pass me the lodestone and you can't do anything about it because I have 8 wounds and hard to wound.
Yeah.
And an upgrade for Marcus that gives him armor and 2 shielded if it doesn't move. So like you can really just lock something down with that one. And the Scorpius just has a stat 7, which very few like henchmen there's very few enforcers that have a stat 7. And being able to give things poison, and then all of a sudden once they're poisoned, they can't use soul stones to declare triggers.
Yeah.
Right. So just, or if you're facing a crew like, McMorning and you bring in a Scorpius and then just have it move over next to something that wants to, use its triggers because everything has poison, all of a sudden you just turn all of that stuff off or, stop McMorning from being able to, use soul stones and then have something else attack it
Yeah. Right.
right. So it's a lot of work you can get out of that one.
Yeah, that's definitely cool tech for that. And I don't know. I think the kind of weakness I gathered from this crew is I feel like if you have strong range attacks, I feel like this crew just hates life.
Oh, absolutely. I recently played a game against an affiliate crew, against my Marcus crew, and yeah, I basically got shot off the board and couldn't stop him from getting all 8 points. It was a good game, and I appreciate it. I mean, he was a good player, so I appreciated, seeing what his stuff did, but it's like, oh wow, you just shot Paul Crockett off the board turn 1, and he was really my only long range threat. And now I just got to get lucky to, keep you from just standing back from, 12 to 14 inches away and just shooting all my models off the table. And eventually that's what it did.
I would say Ophelia is like low-key really good, so I definitely like her a lot too.
Yeah.
Plus, anytime you declare a master and they declare Ophelia, and you're like, oh crap, I have a bunch of huge things in my keyword. It's like she just loves seeing large size things and she's going to kill it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only thing that I had in my crew that was size 1 was the jackalope. So,
yeah.
Hey.
Oh man. Yeah. So definitely, like I said, Marcus feels cool and hopefully something down the line will help him out a little bit more. But definitely, at least in the Arcanist faction, I do feel like there's a lot, like you said, things you can do that does it a little bit better than Marcus. But the next one we're going to get into is this one's actually a cool one. This is the December keyword with Rasputina. If you like making people not move with ice pillars, then you're going to love Rasputina.
Yeah, absolutely. And she has that mean gun, so that she can just, shoot you and then just slow all of your models that are damaged by it. Um,
Yeah.
and putting any of her abilities through those ice pillars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a big thing, that ice mirror ability, where as long as she can see one of her ice pillars, she can basically use that to see where you are, and it's not good.
Right. And they're height 4. So, most, most boards only have a few pieces of terrain that may be taller than height 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can really just pretty much see anything that you need to, and either take a shot at it or put an ice pillar next to it that's going to make you make some tough decisions about whether you want to keep that card or do you just want to gain slow, and or fall into the trap of, yeah, I'm going to take the slow and then pick up the ice pillar and my activation's over.
Yeah, just definitely nasty. I feel like she's one of those masters where if you get really good with her in certain strats and schemes, it's just really tough to work around.
Yeah, it definitely can. Or if there's like if there's like bottlenecks in the map or things like that, and she can just throw those pillars in there just so that you can't get through it. You're going to end up having one of those 3-1 games or something because she's, her crew's pretty slow and not really moving, but they'll be able to score a couple points and just keep you from scoring any of yours, and that's still a win.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's one of the things, like, if you look at a lot of her different models, they're not the quickest. They don't have, like, a lot of out-of-activation shenanigans to move them around. So, yeah, they definitely do like kind of sitting in a spot. So anything they can kind of sit back, they're going to kind of excel at.
And even though they are, they're kind of slow like that, they have ways to deal with guns. Like one of the problems that like Marcus had, with guns. Snowstorm kind of helps solve that with that middle of the storm ability so that you reduce damage by 2 for any gun action. So any friendly model within 3 can reduce the damage by 2. So it's like armor 2 against guns, which can be really useful when you're trying to, kind of lay back and not have to, move forward and engage because, since you're laying back, the first strategy I would think of, all right, then I'll just have to find a way to shoot you from my side of the board. At least they have a way to deal with it.
Yeah, that definitely does help. And Snowstorm is like a decently sturdy model. It's not like super hard to kill, or it's not super easy to kill because it does have 9 boxes. It's a henchman, and I mean it has defense 6 for being how huge that stupid model is.
Right. And one of the things that I've been recently experimenting with with Raspy is running the Essence of Power. So that out of Sandeep's elemental keyword, so that you can give positives to opposed duels to models within 3 with this bonus action. So all of a sudden, defense 6 is defense 7, and even on on the attacks, like for Raspy's gun, all of a sudden she's stat 7 as opposed to being stat 6. So it just changes how you can play her. You can use her gun a lot more aggressively. And then if you use a stone, you get a positive flip. So now you have a stat 7 gun that I use the stone to give all of the models that damaged by it slow, and I'm getting a positive flip on it. Like it's just, yeah, it can make it a lot better, and make it a lot tougher to deal with for your opponent.
Yeah, and the last set of models that I wanted to ask you if you hire in are the Ice Gammon and the Ice Golem. So when you're playing Raspy, do you find a spot to bring those in, or do you only bring in the Ice Gammon and then you form into the Ice Golem? Like, how do you like running that, if at all, with Rasputina?
I usually run the Ice Golem more often than not, particularly if it's like a wedge deployment or something pretty close because he can only move 4. I mean, Snowstorm can move him with his bonus action, but even still, I just don't. That's just something you're not taking out of the corner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I rarely take Ice Gammon. The ability to combine them into the Golem, you only can do that with Sandeep if they have one of those upgrades. I have seen players be successful running the Gammon, but if I usually have Ice Gammon on the board, they're usually being brought in by Sandeep by summoning or something like that, as opposed to me hiring them for their stone count.
Oh yeah, for sure. So is there any other models in her keyword that you like bringing a lot, or just models in general in there that you're like, man, that's a really good one with her?
The silent one is the best healer in the faction. So it has healing energy, the 1, 2, 3. It can do it from 8 inches away, and it can use the ice pillars to stretch its range out an additional 8. So effectively 17 inches away, you can heal something, or just shoot its gun. So those are pretty good. They don't have a melee range, so you definitely want to. They don't have a way to get out of melee if they're engaged or swing back. So you just basically have to keep them safe that way. They're basically made of tissue paper. And the Blessed of December is a good. It can be a great scheme runner in that crew. It's basically the fast model in that crew because it has leap and a move 5. And so you can, get some stuff done with it to, having it go, run down a scheme runner or things like that. And then all of the keyword can eat corpses to heal themselves as a bonus.
That's always
Fitting
good.
into their, they're not carnivores. They are cannibals. Yeah. I think that in the fluff, Raspy, they're all like, cannibals stuck up on the mountain or something. So, yeah, so I'd use that to kind of remind myself, like, okay, remember, they all have Grim Feast. This is one of the games that I can actually benefit from it, unless, of course, you're playing a whole bunch of robots, and then
Yeah, then it doesn't matter. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to probably one of the more powerful keywords, if not just in the faction, also in the game, and that's with the academics with Sandeep Desai. So, looking at him, he's the summoner of the faction, and he's summoning a bunch of elementals. So, how do you find him usually playing out on the table, or what are some things you really like about what he has on his card?
arguably the best master in the faction. Like most summoners are really strong. That ability to the mantras and how they all interact with each other is huge. And he basically has an obey for a 7 on any elemental where they could push 2 inches and take a non-bonus action.
Yep.
So, which a lot of time is going to be focusing because when models focus in Sandeep's keyword, or at least the elementals, basically, tons of things happen, which makes him powerful, but also one of the more difficult masters to play. It's just a lot to keep up with because
It is.
depending upon how many academics you have involved, it could be like, okay, I just focused and now 5 things happen. I
Yep.
draw a card and resolve its demise ability and gain shielded and move 2 inches and if there's an enemy model, they can take damage. There's just so many things happen, and it's which leads you to kind of want to stay in that bubble of about 6 inches away. But it's super strong.
Yeah, Sandeep always seems to have a grip of cards because it seems like every time one of those mantra abilities triggers, he's just like, oh, and then I draw a card, and then I draw a card, and then I draw a card.
That's Kandara. I When you are playing Sandeep, she is an auto hire. Like you need, if you are playing Sandeep, you have to bring Kandara. I'll bring Kandara into other. You asked me earlier, do I ever bring models into Karis's crew outside the keyword? Sometimes I bring in Kandara for the card draw
Okay.
because if you have elementals in your crew and they focus, you get to draw a card. Um, and of course, with Sandeep, you're doing a lot of that anyway. So you're just constantly pulling in cards. Like if you don't have the card you need to summon, you just start focusing, activating all your elementals and focusing with them and drawing cards and just draw until you get one.
Yeah. Yeah, she's good. Yeah, it's definitely the academics for this is definitely cool, and his totem is ridiculously cool. You want to talk about his totem for a second?
Oh, absolutely. Banasuva he's one of the. If he wasn't the totem, you will be hiring him every time in Sandeep. Like he's just that important because his mantra is you get to resolve the demise ability of that elemental. So if that's the wind gammon, you're getting to place a model, or the poison gammon, passing out the poison and damage, or dropping a pyre marker or an ice pillar. Like you can just get so much done whenever something focuses. Like I find myself not really using a lot of his like attack abilities, or if I am, it's usually like really late in the game. Early, I'm just trying to make sure he stays next to a lot of those elementals. He has an obey for elementals, and I'm just trying to make sure he's able to focus. Maybe toss a model that he needs to get in position, and making sure that you're getting all those demise abilities when they focus every time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think people make the mistake, and the guy I play a lot that does Arcanists, he did this mistake once, and I think he learned from it. Is he really got all gung ho and tried to? Yeah, he was actually playing against Ophelia, and he tried to come in and start killing my models with him. And
Yeah,
I basically just shot him up, and he was like, "Oh!" And then later in the game, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and he's like, "Oh, no, never mind. Banasuva's dead. I can't do his mantra."
right, exactly. Like, yeah, I need to get this place. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, like
Yep.
he's so important. Like, one of the most recent games I played with him, I was playing against Colette, and the opposing player knew exactly how important he was. And the first thing they did with Colette was run her all the way across the board and presto change your Banasuva back onto the backside, so that I was fighting to save him for a turn and a half, and
Yeah.
I ended up losing by a point because I just couldn't. By the time I got him back into a spot where he could help. I mean, we're in the middle. We're at the start of turn 3, and I've spent 2 turns basically just trying to save him because of
Yeah, and that's a lot of actions too.
right, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, the academics are definitely an important part of it. So you're going to see them kind of. I feel like they just hang around in the back, but there's going to be a ton of summoning. So how do you decide like which elementals you can summon? Because obviously you have the poison, the wind, you have the fire, all this stuff. It's like
It's metal,
it's like
yeah,
it's like goddamn Captain Planet almost. But
absolutely. And fire powers combined is what's on the card when you turn them into a golem. So yeah, like that's the thing with Sandeep. There's just so many decisions, so many places to make mistakes. That's the trick of it all. Because that's the thing of it with with Sandeep is it's hard. Like you have so many options that are good. You spend so much time trying to figure out what's the right option that you could you won't be able to see the forest for the trees. The wind gamut are great scheme runners. So if you're probably bringing one of those, summoning one of those in at least at some point if you didn't hire one. The poison gamut are the one that you're going to want to blow up with Sandeep's bonus action. If you have a spot next to a lot of their models, and those are the only 2 that don't currently have golems. Hopefully, Weird will fix that so that we can have a possible 5 golem Sandeep crew, which sounds like a whole lot of fun.
that'd be cool.
Yeah, but and then like the fire gammon and the ice gammon, those are just probably going to be the ones you're combining to get some damage done. I tend to lean more toward the fire models because Kandara and Banasuva are immune to fire damage. So even
Hmm.
if they are just dropping fire markers and having the golem move them around, the golem can place next to a model that has burning. So it gives you more flexibility there. So I tend to
Yeah,
lean toward that one.
yeah. I think that the weakness of his crew is kind of like what you were alluding to. That I think, and this is with almost any summoner, that you have such an availability of models. The real trick is deciding which ones are you going to summon to help get you points to win the game. Because a lot of times I see, especially new summoners, where they just summon something and then they just kind of do random stuff with that model, and it doesn't serve an actual purpose for getting points.
Right. Like you have to ask, why am I summoning
Yeah.
this model? How is it? How is this going to help me? And if you don't know, then is summoning the best decision? Because you can do other things with Sandeep's keyword other than just summon. But don't get me wrong, it's still one of the best things. He has great summons, and you're
Yeah.
probably doing it the first 3 turns. But when you're getting to turn 4 and 5, like if you're summoning turn 5, those models can't interact. So how are they going to score you points?
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about Sandeep, to probably why he's actually one of the stronger, probably masters in the game, is he does have the ability to basically he traces line of sight from friendly academic models. So that allows him to kind of hang back a little further than other masters would have to.
Right. And that's one of the things that I have noticed that players who are just starting to play with Sandeep make the mistake of is that you only can draw the line of sight from the academics, not the elementals. So it's not going to be the Gammon or the Golems or any of those. It's just the Guard, Kandara, Banasuva, the Mage, those models. So you just have to be careful about, you know, how far do you want to put Banasuva up? Because if you put him too far forward, your opponent should be looking to kill him. A little bit easier with Kandara with her having Serene Countenance. But
yeah, is that one of the things you would kind of recommend for people going against Sandeep is to, when you have the ability to focus on the academics and get them off the table to reduce their effectiveness?
absolutely. If you can get Kandara and Banasuva off the board, you're going to win the game. It's the engine runs off of that card draw and those demise abilities. If you can stop those, there's not much that Sandeep can do.
Okay.
And Sandeep really isn't that tough. He only has, I believe, 10 wounds. So he has arcane. He has 2 shield, and his defense 5. So like you can. It only takes a few shots to take him off the board. I mean, I've even found myself bringing in a mannequin sometimes and putting it next to Sandeep just so that I can take the hit, so that I can avoid, having someone just kill Sandeep. If assassinates in the pool, it almost like you have to take something to stop them from just killing him.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go on into our next keyword. We've got a couple left. So next one that we have is Tony Ironsides, and this is the MNSU crew. And I tell you, I just played Tony for the first time the other day, and I was not having a good time. I think I ended up tying, but I felt miserable playing. I was pretty salty playing against her.
She can do that. Yes. It does not feel good when you hit her and you do, 2 damage or something, and then she uses her tokens to take no damage, and then she punches you back and they flip a severe and it hits you for 5. And you're like, oh, ouch.
Yeah. And it's not only that, like I was not ready for Bring It. Like the fact that she has a willpower 7 attack to make you come hit her and then you're going to do damage to yourself. I'm like, and it's 12 inches away. I'm like, how is this 12 inches away willpower 7 duel happening right now?
Right, exactly. And then you move your move +2. So if you have a model that has like a move, 7, all of a sudden it's moving 9 inches towards her and
right
then
into the crew.
Right into the middle of to its doom, more than likely. Because once she brings something in, it very rarely finds its way back out.
Yeah, I was playing Whizbang, and I was like, all right, we need to run away from this. This is not good.
Oh, yeah. Whizbang, that is...
Wong.
Wong, that's right. Yeah, the shockwaves.
Yep. So, Tony wants to punch stuff in the face. So what are some things in the crew that help her punch things in the face?
Yeah. Well, the big thing is, she's a bubble crew with that... giving the models around her their grid abilities. Uh-huh. So, and if they're near each other, they get positive defense and willpower duels. So
yeah, that was annoying.
Yeah, right. And then if they bring in the gunsmiths that have that 12-inch gun, it's a 245, has a trigger on each one of the cards, and its grid ability is when declaring an action, it can just add one of those suits in. So basically, it can bake in any one of its triggers. And and if it's not engaged, it can get a positive. So to models that don't have cover and concealment. So if you don't have a way to kind of hide your models, all of a sudden they have a positive and a baked in suit. So which is armor piercing, puncture, the injury trigger with severe injury, like all great triggers. Like it'll just wipe models off the table.
Yeah, it was definitely something where I don't know. It's just it was a lot of positives, a lot of death in that area, and I'm like, we just need to get the hell out of there.
Right? Yeah.
Let's see here. And there was another model. What was that model? There was one that was kind of just hanging back, just kind of helping the crew out. Was it Amina that does that?
Yeah. Yeah, Mina can sit back and prevent you from charging anything. She can she can also be her own bubble, because she has that injured workers act. So you can have like effectively two bubbles of all of the models getting their grid abilities. So you
Yeah.
might have Amina on one side with the gunsmiths, and then Tony on the other side with, Howard, or, another model that can, take advantage of his grid abilities on the other side. So
I think Amina with that Reach of the Union next to the gunsmiths is just ridiculous. It's just like, because you want to models like that, you're like, oh, I'm just going to charge and lock them down, but you have to waste an action just to get there, and then you can attack if you have an action left. So it's just really good.
yeah, absolutely. And if she sees you interact and discards a card, she gets a soul stone. The crew gets a soul stone.
Man, that's really good too.
Yeah. And she has an obey. And who doesn't like obeying the other person's models to do what you want them to do?
It's kind of corner case a little bit. Like, you're not going to do it unless you have the card in hand, or you just want a stone for it. But just looking at that like if you have something like a mask, and then you also get the tome trigger where you can also, gain an adversary out there, that's really good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, right. You can get a ton done with that. Or just if you have a 7, you can obey your own model.
Yeah.
I usually, like, usually when I obey friendly models, because then I don't have to worry about having to beat their willpower in more cases than
Yeah.
that. So like obeying Howard to put up his concealment aura or something like that, putting up vent steam
Yep.
early, so that if they decide to charge in, not only are they not going to get their charge action, they're also going to take damage because they're not a construct.
Yep.
Just making it that much more, making it that much worse of a decision.
I have a newfound hatred for vent steam, because I was like, oh, it gives you concealment and it does damage every time I want to do something. So I'm killing myself. This is great.
Stop punching yourself. Stop
Yeah,
punching
right.
yourself.
That is what this crew does, isn't it?
Yes, it's all stop punching yourself. It's a whole lot of that.
Okay, so is there something that, like, what do you find counters Tony a lot? What's something where it's like, okay, I really don't want to see that on the table when I'm playing Tony?
If you have a way to attack something other than defense, she doesn't get her defensive trigger, because her trigger is simply on defense. It's not on willpower. It's not on move or any of those things like that, or size like some models have. So you can get around that part of it pretty easily. And with the bubbles can be a bit of a trap for a lot of players, because you don't want to get out of the bubble, so you're having to stay pretty close together. So then you can be a victim to shockwaves and blasts, even though you're getting positives to defense and willpower duels. There's only so much of that you're going to do before things are just starting to get hit. And
Well, I think it's one of those things that we kind of mentioned in a couple of these other keywords where, yeah, you can sit in this bubble and murder anything that comes in, but is that actually scoring you points?
right.
So I think that's something when you play a master like Tony, you really have to be careful with.
Definitely.
You get those kill blinders on and you don't actually score points.
Exactly. Like, yay, you have 2 models left. Like, yeah, but I scored 5 points and you have 2, so I still win. Like, oh yeah, that's right. This game is about scoring points, not just, punching their models in the face.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to. God, there's so many stupid constructs in this faction. If you like robots and things that are mechanical, you'll love the Arcanists. But next one's the crossover Charles Hoffman, and this is the augmented crew. So I like Hoffman a lot. His backstory is actually really cool. I think he has polio, which paralyzed him on the Earth side, and then when he came through the breach, he had this this affinity to basically control machines with his mind. So pretty much everything is a construct in Charles keyword. So what do you like about Hoffman? What's he kind of doing on the table?
He is making his models fast, giving them power tokens that they can use for positives. And if you're near their model, if you're near the opponent's models, they're having to take a 10, 15 move duel or gain injured one. And 15 move is hard to beat. Like, there aren't that many models that are, most models are, I would say, are move 5. So that's a 10. And how many 10s are you going to be willing to spend there to not get the injured, because if you
Yeah.
spend it to not get the injured, then all of a sudden your attacks or your actions that you wanted to do on your turn are just not going to happen.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that playing like Whiz Bang because they're all about the high TN tests, and people are like, "Oh, it's sweet, I passed it." It's like, yeah, and that's not a card that you're using for your flips.
Yeah, exactly. Like every time, so even if they're flipping off the top of the deck and they're flipping that 12, and it's like, okay, yeah, I pass. It's like, yeah, but you're going to fail. You're just not failing yet.
Yeah,
I just need to keep. Now it's time to put the pressure on because I've seen you.
yeah, kind of like what you were saying about kind of being able to count cards and kind of keep a hand, an eye on somebody's deck in their hand, and you're seeing them use those resources, and you're like, okay, now I can press a little harder and maybe attack this model a little harder now that I've seen him waste the cards.
Yeah, there's just a lot of those tough spots that Hoffman can put you into, and he gets to pass out those power tokens not only from that, but from when he activates, just pulsing them out to all of the constructs within range, and then all of those models have ways to benefit from those power tokens, like through their actions.
Yeah, and do you find yourself when you play Charles Hoffman that he's kind of just managing the robots? And I mean, he has a decent attack, but do you find he's more using his other effects to help kind of boost his robots to do the most of the heavy lifting?
Absolutely. I would say he's one of those, he's more of like a top down master where like, he's using his actions to benefit his crew to make them better and stronger because they gain fast to the power token.
Yep.
And if he's doing attacks, it's usually really late in the game, turns 4 and 5. Early, I'm probably just trying to get to the middle of the board, so that and trying to finish my activations with models within that 6-inch range so that they can get that power token when he activates. And I'm usually activating Hoffman early so that I'm passing out those that pulse of power tokens and then giving out that fast with his AP.
Yeah, and definitely it's just nice to be giving out the fast, the power, and then any enemy model might also be getting injured once. So that makes it where your robots are, those constructs are hitting a lot harder because your defense just sucks at that point.
Absolutely. And he has analyzed weakness. So if you have one model that's, has a whole lot of armor, he has a 6 against willpower to possibly turn that off and a surge trigger to draw a card.
Yeah, and a lot of high armored stuff and shielded stuff doesn't usually have great willpower, so that's usually something that can cook off pretty easily.
Definitely. And even if they have analyzed weakness, he has a way to make make the armor for his models unignorable with his wielding torch. So
yeah,
you turn it off and then he can just turn it right back on.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, that doesn't matter. I'm gonna flip it on you.
Yes. My models get to use their armor no matter what because I said so.
Yeah. So looking at his crew, what are some of the constructs that you like bringing a lot? Because you do have kind of more choices because you have obviously your Arcanist stuff, but then you have the guild stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. Joss, I would say I pick him most times I play Hoffman because being able to make your damage irreducible is just super good. Like it's just really good. He has a 2/4/5. He has crit strike on it, so you can make that a 4/6/7 irreducible. He just has to discard a power token or gain a power token, and he gains a power token when he charges. So you can charge in, you're gaining a power token, and then use it to in order to make the damage irreducible. It's just super good.
Yeah, that is good though, because you do want to usually activate Hoffman early, but if there's a model that you're like, this model needs to die now, you can activate him and he's at least giving himself one power token to go in.
Right. And, and they have the ability to pass power tokens around. Hoffman can do it with his bonus actions. And I usually bring the toolkit too to help pass out some additional power tokens. So, by the second or third turn, he probably already has a few in, a few power tokens on him. So he's already ready to go ahead and, do that irreducible damage.
Nice. Yeah, and the cool thing about Hoffman's crew is there is like a lot of built-in healing. So it is going to take a bit of a punch because a lot of its models are slower. But the
Mhm.
good news is there's a lot of ways to mitigate damage and then to also heal up a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I bring the toolkit more often than not, and it has a 1, 2, 3 heal that can go up to a 3, 4, 5 if you use 2 power tokens.
Yeah.
So you're having that way, and with everything having armor, when you heal something 3 health and it's armor 2, is it's making it so much more durable than like a model that doesn't have that
See,
level of defense.
I was going to say frustrating, Jeremy. That was the word I was going to use because I'm going to tell you there's times where I think was it Joss? It was one of those like one of the better models. It might have been Melissa, but either
Hmm.
way, I think I got it down to like 2 and he just backed it up, healed it and then brought it back forward like within a turn and a half and I was like this model was dead like a half a turn ago and
Right,
it's now back to full and I'm like this is so frustrating.
right. And now she's charging with running gun, and she has that same dynamic generator to, gain a power token when she charges.
Yep.
And then
Yeah. So, is there anything? Well, I mean, obviously there are some things, but what are some things that basically Charles Hoffman does not like seeing across from him? What are some things where it's like, ooh, this is going to be a rough one for Charles?
definitely things that anything that can get around the armor, so precise or armor. Like, even though he has a way to turn off the if you turn off the armor, or if you use something like analyze weakness, he doesn't want to spend his AP doing that. He would much rather spend his AP trying to make things fast and giving them power
Yeah.
tokens. So anytime that you're able to force him to have to do something like that, it's a win for you. And armor piercing triggers are on a lot of models. Like Dreamer basically everything has something that all of its guns ignore armor, so that can be feels bad if you're not prepared for it.
Well, let me ask you this because I don't know if this might even be a bigger problem. So let's just say that somebody brings something like Colette or somebody brings something, where they're just not going to engage with you. Is that something that's a problem for Hoffman when it's like these just don't want to interact with me? They're just scheming and doing their own thing, and I'm having a hard time running them down. Is that kind of a bigger problem for him?
It can be if you don't pick your crew. Like, he has models that can, like a lot of the models, even though they're robots, still have a good amount of move. Like the cats are, I believe, move 6. I forgot the hunters. Yeah, they're move
Yeah.
6. And the watchers are move 7. So he can kind of hire in a schemy style crew. But if if you're really spreading him out, I would say it's one of the things is that can kind of break down the engine, because he has to be within 6 in
Yeah.
order to pass out those power tokens like that. So if you're able to get everything going in all opposite directions, that's why I rarely would pick him from like corner deployment, because just based on the way the map is built, it's just hard for him to stay close enough to really be able to do the things that he wants. And he's moved forward, so
Yeah.
he can't get to the places he needs unless you're like bringing a guardian to toss him, or the rider to do ride with me. Those are like the only
Yeah.
ways to kind of get him around.
Yeah, I would say I definitely enjoyed playing like Zip or bringing Maris into him because
Oh yeah,
I just do up we go and I just toss him like away from his crew and he has to spend so much just to get back to him. That's how I've countered him a lot. It's just been like, yep, I'm just going to displace you over here and have
yeah,
fun getting back to your boys.
it's right. It's like, yeah. So I use 2 AP and my bonus action to get close enough to give one thing fast this turn at a power token, and now he's done.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep. Yeah, you do have to be careful though because I have gotten models close to Hoffman before and he just pummels them because he does hit pretty hard.
oh yeah, he has a 2, 4, 6. He will. Yeah, he can light a model up if it gets close to him. Like, it is. Yeah, it is not a problem. He can punch something with ease, and he can use power tokens from himself or a model within 6.
Yeah.
So like, even if you have other constructs in your crew like a Soulstone Miner that when he activate, he gave them a power token, but they literally can do nothing with it. he can pull it off and then use it for a positive or a suit to his duel.
Yeah, he's a cool master. I'm actually excited because I'm painting up one of my friends' Hoffman crews. He plays Guild, and I'm painting it up, and I'm just like, man, this is cool. I'm gonna be he's one where it can feel bad sometimes if he's rolling because he just rolls really strong. But it's really cool even when you're getting rolled against it because you're just like, man, I'm getting punched in the face by robots.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I didn't catch until much later is that he can use that positive on any duel. It isn't just opposed duels. So he can use like a power token for his overcharge or for
Yeah.
something like that. So like if you don't have that 6 in hand, you can just get a positive to it. And it's easy to miss a 6 with one card, but it's significantly harder to miss it with two,
All right, and then the last master that we're going to go over is we got Mei Fang and the Foundry crew, and this is the kind of cool 10 Thunders crossover. So looking at Mei Fang and her crew, it's a lot. Once again, it's more constructs a lot of the times, and they're just kind of using scrap markers, and they're using those to kind of just maneuver, but it can also do a lot of synergy. So what are some of the things that when you see Mei on the table, you're like, okay, they're going to be doing this?
They're going to be riding the rails, and they're going to be moving 12 inches, assuming that they have a scrap marker on both sides of it, and that can get models where they need to be very fast. Now, you don't really using it to attack usually isn't the best decision because you can't charge out of it. It's a walk,
Yeah.
but it's great for getting things into position and getting them there fast. And she can do a lot of damage because she effectively has it's like an onslaught, that jackhammer kick, because she gets to push you 2 inches and then take the action again.
Yep.
And she has a lot of ways to kind of get, if something has vent steam up and then she pushes you that 2 inches, you take a point from the vent steam and then hits you again. Like, it can just really quickly become a whole lot of damage. And she can guarantee her triggers by reducing the dual total by 2. So
Yeah, I definitely got a new appreciation for Vent Steam when she had Vent Steam up, the stupid Iron Golem had Vent Steam up, the Mechanical Pork Chop had Vent Steam up, and I'm just like, I'm taking when I'm activating and I'm taking 3 damage just from my 3 actions.
Yeah, exactly. And with those, the golem is a 50 mil base, so that's a huge area that Vent Steam is covering, and it has armor 2 and possibly shielded 2 if it ate a scrap marker on its turn. So you're going to be dumping so much AP in order to try to hit this thing, and then it has a stat 5 with a positive built in, and I think its max damage is a 6 as well. So and it has a trigger to put up Vent Steam, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, you see a lot of that. It's a very durable crew too. I mean, it's kind of surprising because Mei Fang's like a smaller-ish model, but I mean, her and her crew are actually really tanky.
Yeah. I mean, defense 6, armor 1. Lots of a lot of the models in their crew either have armor 2, like the Metal Gammon and Metal Golem, or hard to wound on the Henchman Kang. Just a lot of different. Yeah, the Pork Chopper is armor 2. Just everything is pretty tough outside of Sparks, and which is a good thing because he's one of the better models in her crew.
Yeah, I just played against Mei Fang last week, and I saw Sparks in that list for the first time. And yeah, the hostile work environment, the stupid landmines that he has down, that the scrap markers count as basically severe hazardous terrain. And I'm just like, I just died to myself pretty much. It was nothing she did besides positioning and having the right abilities up.
Exactly. And then if he packs things with explosives, you hit it, and then you basically take blast damage onto yourself and any of your other models that are close by.
Yeah.
So, I usually bring him, and I'm packing that Golem and Mei Fang with explosives turn 1, or the models that I plan on, having move forward turn 1, and then hit them if you like, and you're just hitting yourself.
Yeah, and I will say she's also a really cool master because she's dual factioned, but she also pulls a few of those models out of Bayou too. So she actually has like 3 different factions that she's using to ride the rails and do all of its crazy shenanigans.
Yeah, and all of an overwhelming majority of her models are good in different situations, whether it's that survivor with the 14-inch gun or Sparks. Neil Henry can be good in a lot of situations. I like him in Public Enemies. It's just, she has a lot of flexibility. And
She
that
does.
new cool box that I just got yesterday, and I am really looking forward to.
Are you talking about the 1988 box?
Yeah, the Nightmare
Dude,
Mayfang box.
how sick is that alt metal golem that's going to come out for Black
Man,
Friday?
I, I I'm super excited. I'm sure that I'll have to spend $100 or $200 or something to get it. I don't know if it's just going to be offered as a purchase. I hope so, but it may. Even if they have it, you have to buy X amount of dollars in order to get that.
You got to do it, right?
I'm doing it. Yeah. So like,
Oh
like
man, yeah.
maybe
So
I'll get a new key. Like maybe I'll step into a new faction.
there you go. And that's kind of, I'm not going to say it's a trap. It's actually a cool function. Like some people are like, oh, they're just trying to sell extra models by having dual masters. But I actually, like for me, somebody who likes playing like the game and the entirety of it, I really like that they have the dual kind of faction kind of thing built into your faction. Because like me, I'm starting to play Bayou, but I know as soon as I pick up Zoraida, I'm going to start flexing into Neverborn. And then that might be a second faction that I pick up just because I like the way it kind of feels. So she just does that a lot for Arcanists as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like when I went to that tournament in South Carolina, I believe where we met,
Yep.
I won a lynch box, which and I was like, oh, I've always had already kind of considered that master when I started because of the you know his ability to like look at his cards or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
read the deck. So I was like,
Yep.
this is 10 Thunders. I'm already half Mei Fang, so I might as well
Perfect.
get, some 10 Thunders versatiles or some extra models to be able to run Mei Fang in either way, or, have some models to run with Lynch. And next thing you know, I'm like, I have a toe into another faction.
Definitely. So last thing that I want to kind of talk about from just the Arcanist in general is just I think we can't talk about the Arcanist without talking about their upgrades. So they have probably some of the best upgrades in the game. I think most people would agree.
Yeah, I would argue that they are the best upgrades in the game.
So what
Absolutely.
are some of them where you're like, man, this is just too good to not bring?
Uh, I if I'm not bringing magical training, I must. I it's so rare that I don't bring it that my opponents are like, wait, did you forget that you don't have magical training on a minion because you're only going to get 6 cards? Uh, it was to the point that the first time that I played with like that Lynch crew when I was playing with them on Vassal, and I forgot that this game was played with 6 cards. Like
You're like, oh crap.
like, wait, I only get 6. Wow, how do you guys do this? Like, this is impossible. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and again, like the counter spell is cool, and the shield makes that model more durable. But I'm here for the extra card. I'm only putting it, or
Yeah, that's all just
I'm
like
putting it.
extra on top.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, cool. You make it so that it's harder for them to kill this thing because they should want to kill it because it's giving me one more card to make something happen or one more chance to have my Black Joker in my hand. So that, holding your Black Joker when you have 7 cards is a lot
A
less
lot
of a
easier.
tax. Yeah, than when you only have 6 cards and one of them is your Black Joker. Now you only have 5 other cards. Like
Yep.
yeah. So
Pretty good.
definitely that one.
All right. And then the other one that I see a lot, let me find out where this is the Soulstone Cache. That's another one I see a lot.
Yeah, and it's because one of the reasons is it allows things to be able to use soul stones, and then if enemy models die within an aura, you get a soul stone. They
Mm-hmm.
did change that in the update because before it was any model, including the model itself. So the upgrade effectively only cost 1 if they killed it.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of ways to cheese it before, but yeah, just being able to use soul stones like that, and I've been giving it to like either the Mecharachnid or the Swarm, So then if you use a soul stone within 5 inches of that model, you get a positive flip.
Yeah.
So, if you're using a soul stone for a onslaught trigger, getting a positive, and then killing that model and then getting the stone back. I mean, you really can't beat that. You're getting a rebate as soon as you kill it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just really good upgrades. I mean, honestly, there's none of them where it's like terrible. Even
Yeah,
like
even
Diesel Engine's
Diesel.
really good.
Yeah, Diesel Engine's fantastic.
Yeah.
Giving having the ability to get charged through, and if you're going against one of those crews like an Ophelia or Bandit or any of those crews that have a lot of guns where concealment can be to your benefit, having sputtering exhaust to give all models within range concealment, because
Yeah.
it's not as easy to turn off that concealment because the models within that range just have it, as
Yeah.
opposed to them being like within hazardous terrain, which can be ignored by some abilities. Some
Oh
things
yeah.
get no concealment, but
All right. So looking at the Arcanists in general, you've been to, at least before obviously the lockdown and stuff, that you've been to a handful of tournaments with them. So how do you find that they tend to fare, in some of the more competitive games when you look at Arcanists?
they're competitive. I mean, I think that you can win with Arcanists like you can with a lot of factions. I think this game a lot of times comes down to the players more than it does just the factions. In a lot of cases, the game
For sure.
feels really balanced. Like I think Cody would be winning these tournaments even if he wasn't playing Outcast. Everybody thinks Outcast is broken because he's playing those, but if he were to pick up Arcanists, he'd still win. Um, or or a lot of cases, it seems that way. So you can definitely, I don't see a lot of players playing Arcanist, or at least it's just been a lot of us in the middle of the road, and I feel like that's kind of where we all are just fitting in right now, or at least a lot of the guys in our meta.
Yeah.
The Arcanist players are just probably in the middle. No, I can't remember if anybody's won a tournament with Arcanist in our meta, but you know, I've gotten second, and a third, a lot of that kind of
Yeah.
in that range. But I found myself at top table several times, and then just facing, a player who was significantly better than me, and just trying to basically put myself in a position to get lucky because I knew that I couldn't outplay them, and
Yeah.
that just didn't happen before the lockdown. I was fingers crossed. I was hoping to try to win my first tournament before I had played the game a year, but the shutdown kind of just put a halt to that effort.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where, especially since, I mean, this is your first tabletop game, so the fact that you're kind of competing, at least even in your meta for those top, and I mean, it's not like you're just like a no name meta. I mean, the North Carolina meta is really strong, and I'm kind of happy that Georgia's got some strong players, and now South Carolina we're starting to kind of come into the mix too in this southeastern meta. So it's definitely not like this fluffy little meta where it's like, oh yeah, we're just doing these cute things. So it's good to know that Arcanists can kind of compete at that level. But let's go with this route. What are three masters that you really enjoy taking to tournaments because they're doing really well for you?
Karis is arguably my best master. It took me a while to realize that she was one of my better masters, but I had several opponents tell me like that's your best master, and I was like, really? You think that Karis is the keyword I do the best with? And then when I look at it, I do have a better record with her, and the
Mm-hmm.
reason is because every model, like as I was saying before, you know exactly what you're supposed to do with that model.
Yeah,
So it leaves less spaces for me to kind of make a mistake about what I'm trying to get accomplished. Like
yeah,
forgetting, I need to be trying to score points with Firestarter. I need to be shooting things with Run and Gun with the Master, or it just kind of fits in that way. And then Colette, because she's just a tough matchup in a lot of cases for a lot of different factions and players who are trying to play aggressively.
yeah,
You can just, getting things out of position and doing those kind of tricks. It just kind of flips the game on its head, at least for me, like of how it's supposed to be done. So I've had pretty good success with her. And if I had to pick a third, I would I usually steer away from Sandeep in tournaments because it's just so much going on. It's so complicated. It's hard to get through a game with him. You know, when
Yeah, it's
you're
hard on the
pulling in.
clock.
Yeah, it's hard on the clock. It's hard on your mind. Like it's so much to think about. Like if you're playing 3 games in one day, and then in round 3 you pick Sandeep, you like unless maybe other players won't get burned out by that. By the time I get to round 3, I need something that I can almost put on autopilot for the model, so I can kind of focus on what the other person's doing and ways to get around that. So then I would probably lean to something more straightforward. You know.
I played a lot of tournaments, man, just in other games. And I'll tell you, you're exactly right that when you have a master or you have a faction where you have to be constantly thinking, reacting, and just using that brain power, that by the time you get to round 3, 4, and 5, depending on how long your tournament's going, that can burn like the last round of a day. It's like your mind is kind of getting shot at that point, and that's where a lot of those top table mistakes kind of get kind of made. And I think it is kind of interesting because I talked to Cody when I did the Outcast faction guide, and he actually said that, yeah, I love taking Parker like late in the rounds because I think it is a lot of that mental tax that it lets him kind of go into auto, pilot, and it also gives him a little bit of that luck factor, which sometimes you need at those late round games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I would just be looking to play something that I was either really familiar with or just I don't have to work so hard to
Yeah,
just, yeah,
I feel that way with Somer too, where sometimes I'm like, okay, I got to stop and think, what do I need here? And you're kind of going through your cards, you're going through what you got in your hand, you're going through the, schemes and strats. And it is a lot of brain power, which can definitely get taxing in a tournament. And like we said, it soaks up a lot of your clock time, and then you're not getting into turn 4 or 5 sometimes. So you just got to be aware of that.
exactly. I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just pick Hoffman and I'll just make all of these things fast, and that'll be that, as opposed to 6 things happening every time I focus or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, cool. So we got through all the upgrades. We got through all that. Uh, Last thing that I just want to talk about, and then we'll kind of see if you got anything you want to plug or talk about, is if I'm a new player into the game and I choose Arcanist as my faction, what do you think is one of the better crews to start with as a newer player in Arcanist?
I would look at probably either Colette or Karis, like Colette and Karis. One reason is because they share the Carlos model, who's really good, and it gives you both like two like far in reaches of what Arcanists can be, whether it's like attacking and killing with Karis or scheming and doing tricks with Colette,
Okay.
based on kind of what they want to get done in the game, and just going with one of those, because those just seem to be like, even though Colette is kind of weird, it's still kind of straightforward. She's moving things out of position and trying to score her points.
Yeah. So you're kind of saying like they basically teach you how to do the two important things in the game.
Right. Because I would say the hardest part for the game, when I started playing, like, not that the game isn't hard anyway, it's still hard for me. But
Yeah, right.
the toughest thing that I had to get a grasp on was like the positioning aspect. So I would say, and that's one of the things that actually Hoffman, as another one, helped me fix, because with this ability to like push 2 inches with a bonus action, all of a sudden, if I was just slightly out of position, I could use that bonus action to kind of get me to that spot. These games, like, having the tape measurers or the widgets and things to like measure out the distances, like that part of it, it took a while before that felt, where I could, like, now I almost feel like I can move something and know whether I'm within range of another ability,
Yeah.
just because I'm just kind of like logging all that information in my head. Like, okay, if this thing is over here and I push it 5 inches this way and I move this one over this way, it's still going to be within the, 10 inches that I need to do this thing later. Or, like, that part of it started to fit in. But like early, I felt like I was always off by a couple inches. So,
Yeah.
or off by a half an inch. So like having, abilities like that, they're just like, okay, this is kind of like a buffer where I can
Yeah.
just fix that mistake, because it feels like Malifaux is a game of who makes the least mistakes in a lot of cases than it is just like if both players are about equal in skill level. It's just trying to limit your mistakes, and
Yep.
for me, those were the mistakes that I was making the most often.
Yeah, great advice there for new players in general. Anytime you can get something that lets you get either extra movement or pushes or out of activation movement to help fix, that's definitely good for new players, and it's a great tool for experienced players because you can really use that to take advantage of your opponent or abuse your opponent. So yeah, Jeremy, anything you want to plug or talk about before we get ready to get out of here?
No, I mean, I don't have anything to plug. I just thanks to everybody, that has been like being a person who didn't play these types of games. Everyone that I've met has been, not only just nice in general, but willing to help, like show you how
Mm-hmm.
things work. Like the way that they get excited to share the game, as opposed to it just being as toxic as it doesn't. It feels like family instead of internet trolls or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody kind of has that. We want everyone else to get better and have a good time. So that's just been really dope, and I appreciate the fact that as an outsider to this game, that it wasn't seen as like why are you picking this up? It was like, oh, somebody else wants to do this thing. What can I do to help you get better at it or learn more about it? So
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that looking at what you've done as far as coming in the game, because there's a lot of people in this game, and I think you're right that they've been playing tabletop games for like decades. Like, I'm not even joking with that. Like, I've been playing, tabletop games since the late 90s. And that's something that's good to hear where it's like somebody's just coming in fresh, they were curious about it, and just seeing that over the course of just a year. I mean, you've progressed and become really, really good at the game where you can, maybe you're not winning against the top level players, but you're able to hold your own and at least make a game out of it. And then who knows, maybe in another year, maybe you're there able to compete and do that thing. So I think it's good and inspiring for people to hear that. That way they know, like, hey, if I put the reps in, if I get good with this and start getting the matchups down, I can also compete at a decent level in this game, and that's always great to hear.
absolutely, yeah. Like before the shutdown, I was probably playing 3 games a week. I had plenty of time in the afternoons. I was playing like 3 games a week. So that's the way that I was able to just kind of get better at the game. It honestly is just the repetition of it. Like the first time I play any master, pretty much just like anyone else, I get my teeth kicked in.
Yep.
Like, oh man, Levy does what? Okay, all my things are dead now. So like now I need to figure out what can I do for this not to end up this way. Oh, I lost this game when I built my list because I picked all things that he could easily murder. Like
Yeah, right.
a lot of it is that, and then just getting comfortable with what your stuff does, and just having a good time while doing it. Like never taking the losses personally. The losses are just lessons, and they
Oh,
really
yeah.
don't cost you anything but your time. We're not playing this for money or anything. Nobody,
Yeah.
goes home and can't pay their bills because they lost in Malifaux. So just like it isn't, just making the most of even the bad situations in the long run is just going to make you a better player. At least
Well,
it has
I
for me.
think that people need to just failure is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I got stomped here. What did I learn? And there's been definitely games of Malifaux where, I mean, of course, I'm going to get a little salty just because that's my personality. But I always reflect on it and be like, okay, we can't do that again. We need to learn from that. We have to bring something to deal with that kind of model. So definitely just take your lumps, learn from it, and like you said, people that you play, they'll be willing to tell you like, yeah, man, you should not have done that. That was a bad move.
Right, yeah. Like whenever I play someone who's better than me, even after the loss, like it if I'll ask any of the questions about things that I didn't like either understand or have them, try to point me in the right direction as to like, what could I have done differently or what
Yeah.
made this so easy for you? Like outside of the fact that like what do you know about this game that could possibly help me get better at it? And I haven't had one time where someone was like, I'm not helping you. Like they're like,
Yeah, right.
they're like, oh, like you just didn't understand that my models could do this, and you also have a model in your faction that can counteract that. Like, oh, thanks. And then
Yeah,
the next game, you're
usually
going to be more competitive.
Yeah, usually they'll be like, oh man, I was so happy you didn't bring that model because that would have been a problem for me. And you're like, oh, well, next time I'm going to bring that model.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, oh, I didn't even realize, like, you may not have even seen that value of that model. I've had that happen numerous times where I was like, I can't see any value for that. That thing can't be good. And then, someone explains it to me, and then I put it on the table a couple of times. The next thing you know, it's finding my way into half of my list or something. It's like,
Yeah. I recently, just to give one last example before we sign off here, that I was playing against Mei Fang, and I was looking at it, I'm like, man, there's going to be scrap markers all over the place. What do I need to do here? And I started looking at Bayou Smugglers, which I've never played before, and I saw they remove scrap markers, and I was like, this is going to be a nice little pick. And then I started playing them in the game, and I'm like, okay, this is also getting me some card draw. It's kind of helping me, mold my hand a little bit. So I was like, man, I need to start playing these guys a little bit more.
exactly, man. It putting things on the table can clear things up so much. And then, like, instead of just, remixing the whole list a lot of times, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to tweak one thing in this list and see what happens if I do that. And if I get my teeth kicked in again, okay, well, then maybe that's not the solution and the issue is somewhere else. But, if it helps, then I've learned something new, and then I'm just going to be a better player in the long run.
We'll go ahead and we're going to wrap it up there, but make sure that you guys are checking out our YouTube channel. We're actually starting to put these episodes on YouTube. So those people that prefer to listen to, they can have all the episodes on there. We're also putting on some gameplay stuff. I just put up another God Tier episode on there. So make sure you check that out. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to get any updates or any of the funny retweets, memes, especially with the death of Guild Ball lately. There's been a lot of salt there. So, we've been definitely participating in that. And then finally, if you want to support us directly, make sure that you guys look at our Patreon. You guys can support us for as little as $1, and anything you throw our way would be appreciated. The patrons that we have definitely help out, and they're awesome to have their support. And plus, we're looking at making new dice. It's been a little tricky with the pandemic, but we're going to get new dice for our patrons that pledge a certain amount as soon as we can get them ordered through the pandemic. So, but Jeremy, thanks for coming on again, man. It was real great talking to you about these dirty Arcanists.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on, man. It was a pleasure, and always fun to talk Malifaux. I've gone through your Malifaux content and some of the other games. I enjoy it, as well as I'm sure the rest of your listeners do. So thank you as well, man.
Yeah, and with that being said, Malifaux players, don't forget to flip cards and flip tables, and we will see y'all next time.